Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us for today's briefing on flood risk in the province of British Columbia. To media on the line, please press *1 to enter the queue for the opportunity to ask a question and a follow-up. We are now ready to go live. Our first speaker today is Armel Castellan. He is Warning Preparedness Meteorologist with Environment and Climate Change Canada. Over to you, Armel.
Thank you very much for hosting this call. And again, my name is Armel Castellan, a Warning Preparedness Meteorologist. The following weather briefing will be provided in English, but the questions are welcome in either official language and responses will be provided in the language of the question. L'exposé météorologique suivant sera fourni en anglais, mais vos questions sont bienvenues dans l'une ou l'autre des langues officielles et les réponses seront fournies dans la langue de la question. Okay, I will start my briefing here. So what I'm showing you today here is the public weather alerts for BC. You can see a large swath of BC is in these gray colors. This is a special weather statement for the first significant heat of the year. We're talking about 5 to 10 degrees above seasonal daytime high temperatures. This is not record-breaking like we saw during the heat dome of 2021, but it is covering most of the south coast, the southwest interior, and the central interior all the way up into Dease Lake area. The thunderstorm outlook for today, Friday, remains unstable, but non-severe isolated thunderstorms certainly possible over the north, particularly in the northeast. Reminder that lightning kills and injures Canadians every year. So remember, when thunder roars, go indoors. And today, this week is Lightning Awareness Week. Looking at the weather picture today, we see this big blue H in the middle of the province. This is the start of a 4-day blocking ridge pattern. So we are going to deal with mainly sunny conditions right through Western North America, very high UV index. The temperatures are going to be climbing through the weekend into Monday. We are not going to reach heat warning criteria, mostly because the air mass is too dry and the overnight lows will stay below those criteria for various parts of the province. So again, this is not a heat dome 2.0 of last year of June 2021. However, there are potential heat illnesses for susceptible populations, so please be aware of that. Keeping cool, staying in the shade, hydrating well. The public safety around water bodies is critical. We do not want to see statistics like we sometimes do at this time of year with people accessing the very cold water and becoming hypothermic or getting swept away in high river levels and streams. So even though it's hot, bodies of waters are not. And one last point for the avalanche conditions in these type of temperatures, they will also rise and become more dangerous with the cornices that have not yet dropped or broken off, or the slide paths that haven't yet slid. Shifting to the precipitation, so we will not see precipitation for most of the province over the course of this event. The only exception is the northeast and into the North Peace region from Saturday into Sunday. This is showing you the 24-hour totals, fairly modest, reaching maybe up to 10 to 15 millimeters, but generally below that for most of the region. I will also note that the freezing levels are quite high. They are reaching upwards of 4,000 meters, which is well above mountain peaks, particularly for the southern half of the province. Finally, we need to speak to the ridge breakdown. So this is not a textbook event with dry cold fronts and lightning reaching dry ground the same way that we can sometimes see it in the middle of summer, but it will bring precipitation again on Tuesday. It could be quite heavy. The location is essentially south of the Yellowhead Highway between Rupert and Prince George. The locations will change between now and Tuesday. It's still far away, but certainly you can expect some severe thunderstorms, some heavy rain in some quadrant of the southern half of BC. And I'll also add that this will last likely into Wednesday. Okay, looking a little bit deeper into the first week of July, so July 1st to the 8th, this is an ensemble output showing the probabilities of reaching above normal with the red and orange tones, particularly for Southeast BC and all of northern BC and up into Yukon. So we are dealing with continued warmth, not quite as warm as this weekend, and maybe a little bit closer to seasonal values for the South Coast, Vancouver Island, Sunshine Coast, Lower Mainland. And then looking deeper still throughout the month of July, this is our Canadian output that has a lot of similarities with other international models right now. The consistency of seeing northern BC and into kind of central BC interior of above seasonal probabilities remains. So we expect that the north half of BC stays warm throughout the month. Obviously, there's variations in that statement. You know, there will be colder moments and warmer moments. And then same for the south. We're looking at probabilities near normal or near average seasonal temperatures, but we will likely see some moments there that are also warmer than normal. And of course, we will be highlighting those if they were to reach heat warning criteria or in the very off chance that we go towards an extreme heat emergency. So currently, we do not see that happening. Finally, just staying tuned to the weather with our weather website, .gc.ca, as well as the alerts part of that website for your needs and safety. And also just a last plug on the WeatherCan app, which can easily be downloaded for Android and Apple devices and can give you push notification for the alerts in your region. So with that, I'll stop sharing and pass it over to the next speaker.
Thank you. Our next speaker today is Dave Campbell. He is the head of the River Forecast Center.
Great. Thank you. So we're seeing British Columbia is in the advanced stages of the snowmelt freshet season. This is the period of time when the snow that's built up over the winter melts, and it's the period of increased exposure and to flood hazards. We're seeing now that the high elevation snowpack has advanced in terms of its melt. We're about half to 3/4 of the way through the upper elevation snowpacks. And we are seeing that a lot of most of the mid-elevation sites are now snow-free. We've got 3 main areas of concern related to the rivers as we come through into this weekend and moving into next week. The first is the progression of runoff that has come from rainfall that we experienced earlier in this week that has been sort of traveling down through the larger river systems. And we still can see, particularly as we go through today and tomorrow, the remnants of that pulse of water as it works its way downstream on the larger rivers. So this is the case for the Thompson River, particularly as we go through Kamloops, as well as flows through Prince George on the Fraser River, and we expect that wave will come down and we'll see that continued rise on the lower reaches of the Fraser River as we come into the weekend. These are fairly modest rises above what we've got in terms of the current levels, but it is representing the highest flow levels that we have seen so far this year. Second feature we're watching closely really is this transition into hotter weather that Armel has talked about as we go through the weekend and the early part of next week. We do anticipate that this is certainly going to drive up snowmelt rates across the province where there is snow. And so this is very much confined within those higher elevation watersheds, the larger river systems. We are seeing that this is brings the potential to have a period of increasing flows as we go through the weekend and into next week. Again, on the larger river systems, the way we're at with the snowpack now, we do anticipate that the impact of this accelerated snowmelt will be fairly measured in terms of river levels. So there's certainly the possibility to see some gradual rising as we go through the latter part of the weekend, particularly in those high elevation sites, including the upper Fraser River, the South Thompson River, as well as the main stem of the Thompson. Generally speaking, this really continues to provide a period as we go into next week of ongoing high flow patterns for all of those large rivers across the province. The third feature we're looking at is the breakdown of that ridge that Armel discussed as we go into the middle part of next week, and some uncertainty over to what degree we're going to see some rainfall after that. With rivers high coming into that period, there certainly is increased vulnerability as we go into the middle of next week in relation to additional runoff from rainfall. So we continue to watch that closely, and that could usher in another period of high flows or increased concern next week. Once we get past into the more advanced stages beyond next week, we are starting to see that the critical period of snow melt, we will be kind of turning the corner on that. So we're not there yet, but I do anticipate that as we come into the latter part next week, that those risks related to the snow melt component of flooding will start to taper off, but we have to kind of get ourselves through this weather over the coming week first. And then we'll see as we go in later into the summer, we're certainly anticipating that rivers are going to remain elevated, unseasonably high throughout into July and throughout the early part of the summer. And during that period, we'll continue to be vulnerable to risks from extreme weather events, such as extreme rainfall. We currently have a flood warning in effect for the Quesnel River, flood watches in effect for the northeast part of the province, as well as the North and South Thompson River and the main stem of the Thompson River from Kamloops down to Spence's Bridge. High stream flow advisories in the Kootenay, Columbia, Upper Fraser, Nechako, and Nicola rivers. Similar, would really urge safety, caution as we come into this weekend. Flows on the rivers across the vast majority of the province are extremely high for this time of year, unusually high. So certainly just recognizing that hazard. Also in areas where we do have that accelerated snowmelt, rivers can change quite rapidly. So certainly conditions on small creeks can drastically change as we go through the day. River Forecast Center continues to monitor weather and river conditions. We'll be updating our advisories and warnings as required as we go through the weekend and into next week. And information from the River Forecast Center is available, including snowpack information, our river modeling, as well as the warnings, and that's available on the website at gov.bc.ca/riverforecast. Thank you. I'll pass it back to the next speaker. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next speaker for today is Peter Brach. He is the Executive Director of Regional Operations for Emergency Management BC.
Thank you. As you've heard today, delayed snowmelt combined with other factors has meant that parts of BC are still at risk of flooding. Many waterways in the province have high flows, as you've heard, and it remains important for the public to be prepared for and informed about these risks. Much will depend on the weather, so pay close attention to forecasts and your local authorities. Should an evacuation alert or an evacuation order be issued in your area, follow all directions of your First Nation or local government. If your home is at risk, check to see what support is available, like sand and sandbags, to help protect your property and neighbors. While the weather has been mostly cooperating so far this flood season, the sustained high water levels we're observing means the situation can change quickly. For those in flood-prone areas, I encourage you to plan now. These preparations will help you be ready for immediate risks and make your family more resilient to hazards in the future. Assemble a grab-and-go bag for your household with the essentials you'll need if you're asked to evacuate. Make checking and stocking your kit part of your family's routine. Your kit should include medications and copies of important documents like insurance. Now is the time to reach out to friends or families who will be able to support you if you are evacuated. In the event of a large-scale evacuation, it's important that local accommodation is available for those who have no other option. Following the flooding last fall, the province has been working with communities to address vulnerabilities. This includes provincial debris removal programs to identify, prioritize, and remove debris along 8 major river systems in BC. Ongoing projects like this, as well as critical infrastructure repairs and the raising of berms and dikes, are helping to diminish our overall flood risk. Emergency Management BC has also pre-positioned flood mitigation assets across the province. We continue to shift these resources as the hazard shifts. More than 530,000 sandbags have been deployed by provincial staff so far. We have been working with the BC Wildfire Service crews to limit flood damage. Crews have previously been deployed to support several communities, and this weekend we have around 130 BC Wildfire personnel on standby as needed, courtesy of our friends and colleagues at BC Wildfire. While we're all hoping for an uneventful remainder to the flood season, we need to prepare for the risk at hand. There are things you can do right now to help prevent flooding, such as making sure your property's gutters and drainages are cleaned out and that all the storm drains on your street are clear of leaves and debris. You can also review and download our flood preparedness guide on the Prepared BC website, which contains useful information to help you understand what to do when your home or community is at risk. And remember to keep away from river edges, as you've heard some of my colleagues mention today, especially due to some of the high flows. While I know people may want to seek out rivers during the hot weather over the weekend, river banks, again, are very dangerous right now and prone to collapse. High flows will also make water systems much more difficult to navigate. Please take precautions and be mindful of your children and pets. Thank you, and I'll turn it back to the moderator.
Thank you. And before we go to media questions, we have a final speaker. I will remind any media on the line to please press *1 to enter the queue for the opportunity to ask a question and a follow-up. And for our final speaker before that, we head to Brent Martin. He is the Deputy Director of the BC Wildfire Service.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for welcoming me to the call. So today we'll be discussing a little bit about the current situation and how we will change as we go through the weekend. Thanks to the forecast from Environment Canada, we'll see certainly a changing situation on the wildfire front. So we'll discuss that. We'll have a quick opportunity to sort of speak to the short-term outlook, and then we'll sort of discuss a sort of a glimpse into where we think the fire season is going from the perspective of BC wildfire. So let's just start off with currently discussing our current activity. So I'm pleased to report that we're sort of below normal activity for this time of year. We've been running sort of 1 to 4 new fire starts per day, which is quite low for this time of year, even though June is typically a quieter time of year. So currently to date this year, we've seen about 170 fires. As it relates to the 10-year average, that would be more typical to be upwards of around 330, 350 fires. Currently to date this year, we've only burned about 2,300 hectares, and on a normal 10-year average, we would be up around 22,000 hectares. So it really speaks to the spring pattern that we've been stuck into, and sort of that southwesterly flow that has brought sort of cooler temperatures and generally showery conditions, delaying sort of the start of summer to the wildfire season. So I think that's a really important message here, is that we've really seen a cool spring, and that's really delaying what would be a typical fire season for us in BC wildfire. The other thing that is really important, and the reason I share this image, is we're currently looking at the current fire hazard across the provincial scale here as of Thursday. You can really see the areas of green and blue indicating very low and low fire hazards across most of the province. In fact, just a few areas in moderate hazard as we currently sit, thanks to some good precipitation throughout the week. As we look at moving more into a summer-like pattern, as Armel has indicated, we're kind of shifting out of the spring-like pattern. We're seeing our first heat event of the year, very different from the 2021 fire season, where we're in a different place as we go into this event this weekend, where the temperatures are not nearly as extreme. We're not seeing those low humidities or high wind speeds. So really, from a fire weather perspective, this is just a more typical summer-like pattern. It is going to promote some drying, and so I did indicate sort of as we move through the weekend, you can see the hazard slowly starts to build, but really just shifting more into sort of a moderate hazard with a few little pockets popping up into high. But typically, as we move into the weekend and as we start to move through the end of the ridging pattern into the breakdown, we'll probably start to see our fuels a bit more receptive to lightning. And so as Armel indicated, mid next week, where we are forecasting a little bit of lightning. And so we will start to become receptive to lightning start fires, but really just at the early stages of building fire hazard at this particular point in time. So I think that's an important message that we can share out, is the low periods of fire activity being observed through the spring has really been directly related to the cooler temperatures. And as we sort of were anticipating, the month of June has really remained in quite a cool pattern. So has reduced the potential of fire behavior as we start going into the months of July and August, where we will typically start to see a spike. And so what we're sharing here is sort of a graphic of what a typical fire season is for us. So areas in red really show the extreme event fire seasons, sort of in the 90th percentile. Really shows sort of the beginning of July into August, where we start to see our spikes in fire demand, peak areas of fire growth. Very probably a little bit hard to make out in this scale, but you can really see the solid black line is indicating this year where we're really at the bottom of the scale for normal fire activity going into a season like this. And so sort of as Dave has mentioned, in and around the rivers and delayed snowmelt, that delayed snowmelt also impacts the fire season, and we are seeing sort of a delayed start to what typically would be the start of fire season in the first week of July. And so really haven't come into the conditions yet that would promote severe fire as we start to enter into the start of this particular period of time. The other piece that I think we'll just sort of speak to is it is always difficult. Armel spoke to it, the modeling and looking out to the future. And so what's coming in the perspective of wildfires, we indicated we're really at the front end of building hazard going into this season. We have seen a few areas in the province, particularly through the Okanagan, Caribou, and parts of the southeast, that have been a little drier going through the spring, but not abnormally dry. And so really not seeing anything abnormal going into the months of July and August from the perspective of fire, other than we're having a bit of a delayed start to the fire season. So I think the alignments in models is starting to indicate that we're shifting out of the current pattern of spring-like and starting into more of a summer-like pattern. And so moving forward from this point, we're anticipating starting to see sort of a slow escalation in build of hazard and a general increase in fire activity as we move into the month of July and August, as one would expect. And the last piece I'd like to end with is it's really important that the public have the opportunity to stay informed. And so it's really important that we highlight for current information that you access bcwildfire.ca for any prohibitions in your area. And as well, we encourage public to download the new BCWS public app, which has a recently upgraded feature allowing report of fire and to provide image to the time of start of a new fire. As well, we'd like to encourage you to tune into the BC Wildfire Dashboard for the latest information related to wildfire. With that, I'll turn it over to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all of our speakers today and everybody for joining. This is the media's opportunity to ask questions of any of our speakers. If you would like to do so, please press *1 to enter the queue. You will have the opportunity to ask a question and a follow-up. Pause for a second here to allow any media to join. And it appears that our speakers were so informative, there are no questions today. Thank you so very much to all our speakers for delivering the information today. And thank you everybody for joining. That concludes today's availability.